Okay. So, like I said before, this is designing a garden, part two of the series. Let me get this out of here. So tonight we'll be talking about finishing up the basic design principles, and then we'll get into plant selection and execution, and then designing with function and using natives. So last week we covered site assessment, soil assessment, garden design styles, and different concepts. I saw that a lot of people had a lot of questions in the chat about invasives and natives. I recently actually taught a class on invasives that are attacking Sullivan County, so that should be up on the Sullivan CCE YouTube channel shortly. We're just having some editing issues, so hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But there's a ton of great information on there about invasives. And I also in the past have taught integrated pest management for the home garden, but that class was not recorded. So if that's something that you guys would like me to do again, I can offer that this spring or summer. And then we also do have a natives pollinator garden class coming up this spring. So you can keep your eyes out for that. Like I said, Alan will be joining me later to help me answer the questions that some of you might have. But if there's a question that him or I are unable to answer, we're happy to research it for you and get you a, because we're part of Cornell University, we have to make sure that the answers we provide are research backed and they're coming from either other extensions or universities. So if you could just, I appreciate your patience with, letting us make sure we get the correct answer for you. Um, and yeah, like I said, tonight's presentation will run a little shorter, so we'll do a Q&A at the end. Um, but yeah, so last week we spoke about bubble diagrams, and this is like kind of like a step up from a bubble diagram. These are some of the design tools that I used when I was taking my garden design class through Cornell. You definitely don't have to get fancy, like a bubble diagram is perfect, but getting it down on paper will help you with the planning process. So I suggest, if you're feeling creative or if you have kids and you have like colored pencils or crayons or something out, it's fun to just kind of play around with them and use different colors for different plants. I would say that when you are measuring your space, it's good to have a measuring tape so that you can, when you're putting it down on graph paper, you can actually put it to scale. But these are some of the tools that I used. So these are the garden design. I'm not the best artist, but this is the garden design that I did as my final project for the garden design course that I took. So this is the one on the right is to scale. You can see that little here, this little square right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse. But the little square on the right side of the screen is 1 square foot. So this is like a smaller garden. So that's the scale that I used, but you can see that it is to scale. So all of the plant sizes at maturity are how you see them in the image. So for example, the dwarf blue spruce, I think it grows to be about 4 feet wide. Like that's where it maxes out. That's the maturity size. So that's why it takes up this many boxes. But it's kind of important to do that because that gives you a better idea of like where your garden is going to get to. So you can add, like I said last week, like you can add annuals or even perennials underneath while things are maturing and while they're getting to be where they're supposed to be. Um, but sorry, my computer just like glitched out. But yeah, it's a good idea to just have everything to be at scale. This way you know what's kind of space you're working with. Um, Yeah, my spot was mostly shady, as you can see, like to the left. Well, there's a ton of trees to the left of the garden, so I have a mostly shady spot. It does get some sun, but I needed to choose shade tolerant plants. And I also used a little bit of repetition in my design, so you can see that there are maidenhair ferns. There's a couple of them here. I used the red tussock grasses in a couple different spots just so it would bring kind of unity to the design. Um, and then my color palette was supposed to be pastels. So the foxgloves and the snapdragons are both like different hues of salmon. And then I have kind of like the pinky orange colored grass. Um, the the anise hyssop it adds like a little bit of lavender, and then the astilbe that I chose is like a very pale pink, almost like a whitish pink. So it keeps with that same color palette of like the pastels, and then with the green background. Um, but yeah, I also have like this little curvy little meandering walkway in the design. So I just wanted to show you guys this because it's very basic. I mean, I'm not like the best artist or anything, but you can kind of see what the garden is going to look like or what I want it to look like. And this is like a super easy way just to get your ideas down on paper so that once you're getting down into the soil and you're actually digging the holes for the plants, like you know what it's going to look like. Um, so yeah, I think this is the best way to get started. And then you can see if you like it. Like, if you this was probably like my third or fourth draft. Like there was a couple different ideas that I threw out there that I ended up not liking them. So, this was like my final draft. Um, go to the next page. Okay, so when you were choosing plants. So I think that something to think about when you're choosing plants, if you let's say you decide that you want to do a native garden or you want to use all native plants, you don't have to have a meadow type garden or like the free flowing open natural looking fields. You can implement native plants into a formal design so that you can kind of still get that unified kind of organized more formal look, but it'll have native plants. Um, and you can see just in this little like this little picture of a portion of this person's garden that they're using color like they have the purple and the greens. They're using repetition. They have the same plant like a few times just in this little space. You can see they repeated down here and then with the little round I know people like to call these like the meatball shrubs. They have these in a couple places. Um, and then you have a couple different types of texture here too. So it really just adds to that unified feel that it's like, the garden feels like it's put together and it's a planned space, not just all over the place, like more natural. When will these flowers bloom? So another piece to think about when you are choosing plants or designing to make your garden a little more interesting is to keep in mind the bloom time. So I have a list here. Oh, I put crocus twice. And last week I spelled Mediterranean wrong. I realized that while I was presenting, but forgive me for that. But yeah, whenever you are planning a garden, you kind of want to keep in mind when things are blooming. You don't want to just plant a bunch of flowers that are all going to bloom in early June and then in mid-July there's like nothing else to look at, nothing to look forward to. So I know wintertime, you're going to see a lot of bulbs start to push up, daffodils, crocus, goat's beard. I didn't know that was it's like an early spring, late winter bloomer. For spring, you have columbine, shooting star, trillium, peony. Early summer, you see bee balm, butterfly weed, daylily, salvia, and then summer through late summer are all the ones listed there. Um, Black-eyed Susans are, I always feel like they're such a great addition to any garden because they literally bloom for like 8 weeks and they go from like early August or late July through like probably the end of September, sometimes even October. Um, so yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. Just you don't want everything to bloom all at once and then your garden is kind of done for the year. So this is another way to keep your garden planning interesting. Okay, gardens with functions. So these photos are all from Hudson Valley Seed Company. That's where I get all my seeds. That's the company that I use to plant my raised beds at Cornell last summer, and I had great germination. Everything, like all the fruits and vegetables were really delicious. The flowers were like super productive, very abundant. Everything was great. They're just like a really great reputable company to use. They're local also. But if you are kind of trying to take the guesswork out of planning or choosing flowers, they have these wildflower seed mixes that are like all said and done for you. So you just throw them in the ground, and a lot of them are perennials. Some of them are annuals, so they'll bloom right away, but some of them are perennials and they will take a couple years to establish and they really shine like year two, three, four. So you have to be a little more patient with them. But if you're looking to, you know, help with biodiversity or even like climate resilience, like this is a great way to do that. If you want your garden to serve more purpose than just being beautiful, it's a great idea to plant natives. So, and then this is just another example of a person who switched from a lawn to a meadow garden. So that's another idea for people that, once you get this type of garden established, it's literally like no maintenance unless you go in and, have the perennials at some point. But if you think about how many hours a week, especially in the summer, you spend mowing your lawn, we don't have a ride-on mower. We just have a push mower. So it's like, I don't know. I guess usually we get away with like once or twice a week, but it feels like it's just never ending, the work on a lawn. Whereas in a garden, once it's established, it's really not so much maintenance. And then here is just another example. This is like a free flowing, not a lot of structure, kind of meadow type natural cottage garden. So um, these are just these are the type of gardens that once you get them established, they don't require a lot of work. So I just wanted to show you guys another one of those. Designing for winter interest. So this goes hand in hand with planning for blooming flowers all season. This is gonna continue to give you like something beautiful, like some eye candy throughout the winter when nothing is blooming and everything's probably covered in snow and looking pretty gray. You can see there's nothing gray about this space, I mean, except for the stone, but you see the conifers are gonna look the same all year. The river birch in the back is, I mean, the shaggy bark is like very interesting to look at. And then you have the red twig dogwood, which it's just a lot of color, a lot of popping. Even though nothing is blooming, it still looks like a very vibrant and like thriving garden, even in the winter. So that's another thing to think about when you're planning. Um, winter winter interest plants. So these are just a couple examples of different plants that you can use that really do look beautiful all year. The red twig dogwood is the one in the middle. The golden duke eastern hemlock is like one of my favorites. It's kind of like that chartreuse color. It's really interesting and pretty. I always feel like Hydrangeas look beautiful. Even now, they look beautiful when they have snow on them and they're dead, or they look the way that they look. They still are interesting, and they provide food for birds. And then this is not a paper birch. This is a gray birch, but I made a mistake there. But yeah, these still like the beautiful white bark and just yeah, I think that these are all really great choices if you're trying to not have your garden look so depressing in the winter. Um, okay. So these next couple of slides are plants that I got from the Audubon Society. They're all native. They The first slide is ground covers and vines, and then there are flowers and grasses and shrubs and trees, but I'll just go over a few of them so that you guys can kind of get some ideas of oh no, of what you might want to put in your garden. And again, these are all native to the Northeast, so if you're looking for that type of input, this will be helpful. The Pennsylvania sedge, this this you can actually use as a lawn if you're looking for like a grass replacement. This is native. Um, it needs a shady spot, but it likes kind of wet, shady spots. It's a host plant for native butterflies and moths. A lot of other insects like it as well, and the birds use it for their nests also. So this is a great addition to your like native planting if you wanted to use that. And then trumpet honeysuckle. They are semi-evergreen vines. They come in shades of yellow, gold, orange, or red. Hummingbirds really love them, and they usually bloom a few times throughout the summer. So these are another great addition for a native garden. Um, the berries also get eaten by a lot of wildlife. They like sun to shade, well-drained soil. But yeah, then there's bearberry, Virginia creeper, creeping phlox, which is like the little purple flowers on the right. Those are another example of people use those as ground covers. I've seen a lot of people use creeping thyme also as ground covers, but that's not native. It's a little hardier though. I think it could take a little light traffic, whereas these two like very light traffic. Um, and then these are some native flowers and grasses. If you were interested in using natives, again, there's bee balm. Bee balm is like one of my favorites. It's really pretty, and bonus, the deer will not eat it, or they don't in my garden anyway. They don't like black-eyed Susans either. Or milkweed. Milkweed is poison, so you want to be careful if you have kids or pets. But yeah, echinacea, not poisonous. It's also edible. Asters. The picture at the bottom is blue wild rye. Let me see. The blue, I have something about that. Let me just find it. I thought I did. Oh, okay. Um, so the the birds and small mammals will eat this. Grasshoppers, caterpillars, and other insects use the leaves for protection from birds. But they like full sun for the most part, but they can take a little bit of shade. But that's a one of those native kind of ornamental grasses if you're looking for those. And then again, like the sunflowers. Swamp milkweed also is a host for monarch butterflies. So you will attract monarch butterflies, and they will probably make cocoons on your milkweed if you have them in your garden, which is a bonus too, and good for kids if you have any and you wanna show them that life cycle. And then we have trees and shrubs. So the North American oaks, they're my favorite. I'm always gonna like plug the oaks because they're just they offer so much. They are home to I think 800 different caterpillars. And then they provide food for birds. Their leaf litter, it I guess like the leaf litter from oak trees is a little more leathery than other leaf litter. So they never find those Asian jumping worms, which are another invasive that we have here in Sullivan County. They never find them in like oak areas. So that's another reason to plant them because you'll never get those Asian jumping worms, which no one wants because they ruin our soil. So yeah, oaks, there's a few that you can choose from. There's even more than this. There's a list that the Audubon Society has, but these are I think these are like the most beautiful. So white oak, red oak, and pin oak. And then you have gray, black, and river birch. Um, which also, I mean, I guess I'm just like partial to birch trees. I think they have the most beautiful fall colors. Um, and again, caterpillars love them, wildlife, they I guess chickadees, red poles, and a bunch of other songbirds really love their seeds. So if you are looking to attract songbirds in your yard, this is a great way to do it. Um, the dogwoods. So there's a flowering dogwood, that's the pink tree that you see there. They're really beautiful. They they bloom like that really pretty pink. And then I think there's also a white one as well. Um, yes. So they also get red fall berries that birds love, but they kind of make a mess. So don't plant them anywhere where you have like light patio or like near your car. But yeah, they attract a ton of pollinators, wildlife. Yeah, so another another beautiful one that's really popular in garden design is the red twig dogwood, which we saw a couple slides back in the winter interest garden. They're that beautiful red color, so they look beautiful even in the winter. And then blueberries are always a great thing to plant too because they get these really beautiful, like small, delicate white flowers that bloom, and then you get blueberries. And when you plant blueberry bushes, you have to plant a few, and then the more you plant, the more berries you'll get because they'll be pollinated. But I would say that if you're going to plant them, just expect that the birds are going to eat some, and you just plan to share with the other creatures. And then here's a couple more lawn alternatives. So the crooked stem aster is the middle picture. It's native to Eastern North America. I was actually reading about white clover, and it's actually not native to our area. So I think it's naturalized here, so a lot of people think that it's native, but another one that I read that is not native is dandelion. So that was news to me also. That's naturalized here, but it's not native here. Um, so yeah, these are just other lawn alternatives if you're looking to replace your grass so that you don't have to mow it constantly all summer. I think these get mowed like once a month. Um, and then this actually, I think I have to click on it in here. I just wanted to show you guys this because this is a great resource. And Monica, just stop me if you can't see my screen, but I think that I shared both of these screens. So,
We can see the Zoom kind of home screen right now.
okay, I'm trying to move this, but this is not what I wanted. This one. So, okay. So this is just This is the Cornell Botanic Gardens up in Ithaca, and I believe that this native lawn is next to it's like on campus. So they like blocked it off, like nobody can walk on it anymore because they were trying to get it to establish. But this is just another example of a successful nat like letting they kind of just let nature take over, and they planted not grass, and that's what it looks like. So but they give a couple different examples of things that you can plant and instead of grass. And yeah, they're always just like a great resource, and they talk about like why you should get rid of your lawn and have some native alternatives. So yeah, any website too that I click on, I can email to the registration list so that you guys can take a look at them and play with them on your own. This is another one I wanted to show you. This is the Woody Plants database. This is a great resource to help you choose shrubs or trees. These are all woody plants, so not so much flowers or annuals or perennials. But okay, so for example, let's see you're looking for a shrub. You want a small shrub, you don't want it to be too overgrown. It can be deciduous or evergreen, but you need it in a shady, you need it to be shade tolerant because it's like super shady in your spot. Your soil pH is just normal, so that's not a problem. Let's say you live in 5B, any and this is just like this is a really great resource to just help you find plants. But they're not necessarily going to be native. Just keep that in mind. So this is just a great resource to help you with plant selection if you're having trouble coming up with one, or you want to have like a variety and know that it'll definitely do well in your spot and not rely on a nursery or anybody else. um, this is through Cornell University, so this is good information. But yeah, we have like hydrangea, a lot of hydrangea apparently. I guess all hydrangea. um but yeah, so you can also choose evergreen or not. So it's just a fun tool to play with to help you choose the right plant for your spot. This is another really good one that I found. This is the same thing. You choose the hardiness zone, let's say 5 and 6. Let's say we need a full sun spot, average water, average height. Let's say you want something that's a little bigger, or let's say you have a small space. So a smaller plant. Um, loamy, and I only want pastels. So I'm gonna pick these. Oh, I guess nothing. There's nothing that fits this. Okay, maybe I need to narrow it down. Let's choose more colors. There we go. Okay, so then this will come up with flowers, shrubs, plants. It won't just be those woody plants. So you see here that there's a ton to choose from, and whatever fits in your space, or something that pops out to you. This is just a good resource to come up with different plants for your garden. And then we have pollinator.org, which these will come, I think they ask you your zip code. and then they will come up with native plants for your area. And they also have guides in here. So if you are interested in like doing a little reading, you can pull up the guides. Like here's one for our area. And these have a lot of great information about plants that are native and thrive and do really well in our area. And then this is a local author that has a beautiful preserve and pollinator garden out in Liberty. Um, I haven't been there in the spring or summer, but I'm sure it's incredibly beautiful. But this is a really great resource as well. She has plant lists here. She has like photos of her gardens. I believe most or all of the pictures on the website too were taken in her gardens. She only has native plants. So she has like azaleas, forest gardens. If you have, if you're interested in natives, this is a really great, incredible resource to take a look at. But you can see like a designed meadow. That's kind of what we talked about before. But again, plant lists. So native plant alternatives, keystone plants for butterflies and moths, native plants for bees, berries for birds. These are just more resources if you're looking for natives. Which again, like I'll always plug the natives because we don't exist. We should. I mean, I think everybody, everybody's different. You're gonna make your garden how you want to make it, but um, I do think that you can marry the idea of a beautiful garden space to working on enhancing the natural world around us as well, especially because there's so many issues with biodiversity and invasives and climate change, all these challenges that the natural world faces. Like we can help rather than be a hindrance with our gardening. And I don't think anybody who's into gardening, like, we all care about nature, so. But here are a couple of this. I have this slide in the last presentation. This is just a reminder of, if you have a space that you would like to create a garden in, let's say there's lawn there, or it's just like very weedy, there's some things growing, you want to get rid of everything. Sheet mulching is like very low labor intensity. You can just place cardboard down and then throw um, mulch and compost on top of that. And then in a few months, you'll have like a perfect space that's weed free for your garden. You can also use this weed barrier. They have, they have better ones that are kind of not, they say these are like eco-friendly. These are great because they'll just like smother everything alive underneath, and then you can not worry about weeds ever and just throw some mulch on top of it. But this is like another kind of like cheating way to get your garden to look the way that you want to. And then this is just some information about young tree care and young plant care. This graphic, oh, let me make this my full screen again. Sorry, guys. Just so it's easier to see. So this graphic kind of explains how you would dig a hole for a tree if you're planting a tree. Um, we will be offering a tree and orchard care class later, like, or sometime in the spring. That's like a little more intensive, where we spend a little bit more time. But whenever you're planting a tree, you want to measure the root ball and dig the hole just as deep as the root ball, but you want the planting hole to be much wider. So I would say like triple the size of width and then just as deep as the root ball is. And then you're not going to bury the root ball. You're going to let that top of it be exposed the way that they show here. Um, this is considered the drip line of the tree. So if you are putting fencing or like planting stakes to keep it stable, you want to plant those, you want to place those past the drip line. And then always, whenever you plant anything, you want to water it generously in the beginning. Make sure that you are paying attention to its sun and water needs. Um, yeah, and then whenever possible, you should choose bare root plants because a lot of the root balls that people will buy from nurseries, like even the most reputable, nicest, cleanest nursery, it's impossible to keep everything out and keep all pests out. So it's just a good idea to take the soil out of a tree or a plant when you're planting it and just get rid of that soil that it came with because you don't know where it came from or what type of pathogens could be in it, or a lot of that's how the Asian jumping worm spreads. It's a lot of people will bring nursery plants home, plant them in their garden, and not realize that they just planted Asian jumping worms in their garden. So, bare root plants whenever possible. And then this is actually an AI image. I was trying to find a picture of a garden that had a barrier of mint around it. I know these exist. I've seen them, but I didn't have a picture of one, so I had AI create it for me on Canva. And basically like that spare that like bare space in the middle, if that were your garden and that were like all your vegetables and plants that a lot of wildlife would like to eat, you can plant kind of a barrier of like very fragrant herbs around it. And that's one way to deter wildlife from eating all your stuff because they'll just think that it's all mint and they won't bother the mint. Or they don't like very fragrant herbs. So anything in that same vein, they'll stay away from. Um, but as always, like fencing, netting, if you're planting things that are subject to be eaten by wildlife. Companion planting is a good idea for a vegetable garden. So if you have a vegetable garden, you want to plant some flowers in there too, because that's going to attract beneficial pollinators, beneficial insects that will eat the things that are eating your crops. So, if you have aphids on your lettuce or whatever, um, but you have a bunch of big, beautiful blossoms, you're going to attract the insects that eat the aphids, and then maybe you won't have as many and you won't have to spray or deal with pests. And yeah, that's it. I think I went a little, oh yeah, 6:41. Okay, yeah. So that was a little shorter than last week. All right, thanks guys. Everybody have a great night and have a nice weekend.